Alright, so today doing a different type of video, just recording here at home. I'm not at the facility today. Just kind of wanted to go over some list type things. The first thing is practice. Just like any hobby, practice makes perfect. You can't expect to go into a hobby, especially when it's somewhat difficult, and expect 100% success 100% of the time. That's just not going to happen. A lot of people, they think, oh, I know what I'm doing, so I'm always going to be successful. I'm always going to get this right. That's not really the case. I've been walking around for 30 plus years and I still fall down sometimes. And that's just put one foot in front of the other. So you can assume with how many steps there are to this and how difficult it is that eventually you're going to make a mistake. Something's going to happen, and you're not going to be successful. So the best thing that you can do is practice a lot, grow different types, see what works best for you, that kind of stuff. You're not going to get perfect just by reading around online a bunch, watching videos. So the best thing that you can do is practice. The second thing that you can do, find a good variety that you like growing. Whether it's you like how it looks, you like how it yields, you like how it tastes, whatever it is, find a variety that you enjoy growing and grow it a bunch. The more that you grow that one variety, the more you'll understand how it works, and you'll do better and better growing it every time that you grow it. You'll kind of find the ins and outs of that variety, and then you can kind of apply that to other varieties that you want to try to grow. Growing one variety, you also kind of learn what works well for that variety, and then whenever you try another variety, you might find things that worked well for the one but not the other, and then you can kind of figure out maybe what works best for a variety of different mushrooms rather than just one mushroom. You can kind of figure out what you can change and what you can affect on the mushrooms based on, well, I know this one really enjoys this, I know this one didn't enjoy that so much. So that's a variety or a variable that you can change there. Next up, the third thing is find out what works for you. Get different methods, try out different things. Eventually you'll find methodology that you enjoy doing. You'll find things that you find easy to do. You'll find things that are cost effective. You'll find different ways of doing things that are better for you, better for your mushrooms, better for your circumstances. Some people have very affordable access to certain materials. Some people have better access to different temperature controls or humidity controls. Some people don't have any of those things, and so they have to kind of just make things work. So try out a bunch of different methods, a bunch of different things, see what works best for you, and kind of go off of that. Once you figure out what methods work for you, you can kind of hone in on those methods. They'll be a lot easier, you'll be less likely to make mistakes, and you'll kind of get that craft down. You'll really get the hobby figured out, and you'll be able to do everything fairly easily. The fourth thing that you can do to get really good at growing mushrooms is understand the basics of growing mushrooms. It's a very complicated process whenever you get down into it, but it has really basic and easy to understand methodology for everything. Everything can be explained fairly easily. If you can't explain something easily, you probably don't understand it well. So while there is very difficult concepts in mycology, for the most part, you can explain how to grow mushrooms to somebody within a couple sentences. You're basically just getting grain moist, putting spores onto it, the spores germinate, the grain colonizes, you mix that grain with substrate, the substrate colonizes, then mushrooms grow from that substrate. Really, that's all there is to it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different steps in between all those things that you have to kind of figure out. You have to know what you're doing. But once you understand the basics, you're not going to make many mistakes. We get people all the time that they think they understand things. They'll say things like, oh, I see a lot of condensation in these bags, so they're contaminated. Condensation isn't a contamination, it's just moisture. It's just indicating that there's moisture inside of something, and the inside of that something is warmer than the outside. And so water's condensing on the inside of the bag or the jar. It's not a contamination. We'll hear that sometimes. We'll also hear people that say, oh, well, if I fruit my all in one bag in a monotub, I'll definitely be getting more mushrooms from it, right? Yes and no. You're not going to get more yield just because you have more surface area, but you'll get more mushrooms because they'll be smaller because they have more surface area to grow from. So understanding the basics of mycology, understanding where contamination comes from, the ideal conditions for growing in, the basics for sterilizing things, how to prepare your grain, how to prepare your substrate. Those are going to be the things that really help you with growing. You're not going to make assumptions about why something is the way it is. You're not going to have questions about why things are going a certain way, why something happened. You're going to understand what might have happened. You're going to understand what's going on. And overall, that makes it a lot easier for you to diagnose issues or to avoid issues entirely. The fifth thing for getting better and more successful at growing mushrooms is moving in steps. Gradually increase your cultivation hobby. It's not really recommended to jump straight into mycology. As with most hobbies, there's different levels of spending. For mycology, you can spend a lot of money if you want to. But if you're just starting out, you probably don't need to. You probably don't need to spend, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a laminar flow cabinet if you've never worked with agar before. Sure, you can do it, but chances are you're not going to use it for a little while. And if you do use it, you might, mess something up and then the whole thing needs fixed, that kind of stuff. Move up in steps. So get your first grow and then maybe try cloning from that grow. Maybe start with a little bit of agar work. Don't jump straight into 50 tubs, 100 bags. It's best to go slowly. Make small steps. You're going to run into failure at some point. Usually you have more failure early on, so you don't want to be throwing out a lot of material, a lot of time, a lot of money just because you jumped into everything really hard. You can always build up as you go. So probably the best thing to do is get at least one grow, start to finish. And then, like I said, you can try taking one of those fruits that you've grown and do a little bit of agar work with it. You can either, take a spore swab and germinate the spores from it, or you can take a tissue clone, put that on agar, and then you can use that agar to either get more grain prepared, or you can try making liquid culture, then kind of go from there. It's always good to move in steps because you'll also learn more as you're going that way. You're not going to just completely inundate yourself with all the information that comes from, learning how to prepare grain and substrate and agar and this, that, and the other thing, all before you've even grown one single mushroom. So yeah, that's my top 5 recommendations for learning to be successful at mycology. Obviously, there's more things that you can do, and we'll detail more things in future videos, but that's a good place to start. So good luck, and much love.